So welcome to our Bees for Business event this morning. My name is Patricia Alexander. I'm the Managing Director of Shared Interest. We've been around for 34 years, and 20 years ago we established a charitable arm, which is the Shared Interest Foundation, who you're going to hear from today. So this organisation was set up to provide capacity building and business support for fair trade organisations. Over that time, over the 20 years, the foundation has been extremely successful. They've worked with over 13,000 farmers and artisans. They've delivered 51 projects in 15 countries, worked with 230 organisations and 7 fair trade producer networks. But this event is, as I said, concentrating on our Bees for Business one of our Bees for Business projects, and hopefully you're going to be able to hear the contrast between beekeeping in the UK and beekeeping in Uganda. So I am now going to hand over to our foundation manager in Ghana, Kojo Kakotsi. Over to you, Kojo.
Thank you, Patricia. And once again, welcome to our second virtual event to mark our 20th anniversary celebration. Just a second, let me share my screen. Right. So before I get started, let me say that Shared Interest Foundation, as an international development charity, has been designing and delivering a wide variety of projects aimed at supporting smallholder producer groups to build sustainable businesses, create employment, and contribute to the development of their respective communities. So in recent years, our work has really focused on 3 main thematic areas. These are developing sustainable enterprises, empowering women and youth, and building climate resilience. So the foundation has been supporting producer groups to establish sustainable businesses such as share processing enterprise, groundnut value addition enterprise, vegetable production enterprise, and of course, beekeeping enterprise. As a result of enterprise development, producer income had increased by an average of 170% last year. So in terms of our second thematic area, which is empowering women and youth, we do really work with young people because we need to ensure the sustainability of agricultural commodity value chains. And those who are producing the food that the world is living on, we need to really prepare them to ensure the sustainability of the value chain. So we deliver youth-focused projects to attract and retain youth into the agricultural space so that they can take over from the older generation and continue the sustainability of the value chain, as I said. We also work to empower women because of the heavy responsibility that falls on women, especially in rural areas in developing countries. So we do really empower women economically and socially so that they can play a vital role in supporting their household to meet their basic needs. The third thematic area has to do with climate resilience. We all know that climate change is a big issue facing producers in the developing countries. So we do design and deliver projects to build the climate resilience of producer groups and their communities. So we deliver training in climate adaptation strategies such as mulching, composting, trenching, and then composting just to help farmers build resilience against climate change. So last year, over 1,200 farmers received training in eco-friendly agriculture practices. Now I'm going to focus on the main agenda for the day, Bees for Business. We started our first Bees for Business project in rural Burkina Faso in a community known as Dakoro. In rural Burkina Faso, especially in the western region of that country, women normally work 4 months a year during the harvest season, picking shea or cashew or working in mango processing facilities during the harvest period. So just after the harvest, they are out of work and they really struggle to make the basic needs of their household. So some of the women try to do beekeeping, but do lack the resources to be able to go into professional beekeeping. So they've been making hives with baskets and trying to produce some honey for home consumption, but that is of very bad quality because of the nature of the hive that they were using. They were traditionally made. So we identified the group, and then we felt that beekeeping could really be modernized and provide an income for this community. So we started with 50 women in Dakoro by providing them with modern beehives, a total of 250 modern beehives. We trained them in beekeeping technology, beehive management, installation of beehives, harvesting techniques, and we provided them with tools and equipment to be able to harvest the honey and process it. So from this activity, the women made a first harvest that was 468 liters. That was in June 2019. But as at this year, June 2024, the volume of honey that they have produced has increased to 1,907 liters, which means that the volume they are currently producing has increased by 345%. So this has also impacted, of course, their income. So the income of these women have now grown to 1,100 GBP to 6,700 GBP in June 2024. So with the income that these women have made, they are able to now open a bank account, save their money. And during the off-season, they use part of the money to buy input and planting material to do subsistence farming in their community in order to get food to feed their families. These women today are able to send their children to school. They are able to provide all the school supplies and material for their children. Let me say that in the past, these women were not able to do that. The responsibility of taking care of the children in that space was fall ultimately and solely on the women. And most of the times, the children are driven out of school for non-payment of school fees, or because they don't have the books, or because they don't have food to eat. So they were really struggling, and the school dropout rate was very high in that community. But thanks to the beekeeping enterprise that we supported them to establish, they are able to send their children to school, they are able to meet their healthcare needs, and they are able to supply them 3 square meals a day, which is a huge impact. In that community, women were not really respected because they were not economically empowered. But now they have a voice in the community. They are consulted when it comes to making of major decisions. Some of them use the income that they made from the sales of honey to buy bicycles, to enable them to commute from home to market centers and to other places, and even to go to their farms. We also supported the group to plant over 1,000 trees that are melliferous trees, flower-bearing trees, in order to attract the bees and colonize their hives. So during the period, these women have been able to add over 30 new hives to the 250 hives that we provided them. We also extended this project to a second community in rural Burkina Faso known as Sidera Dougou. We also provided them with 300 beehives to enable them also go into that activity. The story in that second community was quite a bit different because they were doing illegal mining, which was very dangerous for them. And then they were at high risk. But since we have supported them to establish this beekeeping enterprise, they stopped going for mining, and then they are able to make a significant income from their beekeeping activity to meet the basic needs of the family. Both the two communities now have plans to set up a school because the school the children go to are a bit remote, so they have to cover miles to get to school. where currently they are planning to build a school in the community. And then in the second community, they are also planning to set up a health facility to promote access to healthcare. So this is how, from a little beginning, beekeeping is helping now these women to make a significant contribution to the development of their communities. Now let's move to Uganda in East Africa. We have also started 2 beekeeping enterprises in Western Uganda. So we provided beehives to coffee farmers. Generally, coffee farmers depend on coffee harvest to be able to meet the basic needs of their families. And sometimes during the year, they are cash strapped, they don't have money, and so they afford to go and then harvest coffee cherries that are not fully ripe. And when it happens like this, the quality is poor and they are not able to make a good income from their coffee. So we have decided to support this group of farmers to diversify into beekeeping as a second source of income so that they can live on that and then have the patience to wait until the coffee is ripe. So this activity is currently ongoing in 2 different communities in Western Uganda. So we provided a total of, we are working with 351 coffee farmers, and then we provided 1,050 beehives to one of the communities, which they have placed into their coffee trays. The advantage here in Uganda is that bees are excellent pollinators. So the hives are placed among the coffee trays to increase pollination of their coffee trays. So they are going to benefit on 2 counts. First, coffee yield is going to increase because of the high pollination from the bees. And at the same time, they are going to make income from the sales of honey and the beeswax. So this is one of our project beneficiaries in Uganda. He said he had always wanted to do beekeeping, but did not have the resources to go into beekeeping. So when we supported them by giving them beehives, trained them in beekeeping techniques, they have started now this activity. He said that at first I was fearing bees, but after training, I was convinced I could be friends with them. After training, I got more knowledge and courage. So these farmers are expecting to make their first honey harvest latest by August this year. So in a nutshell, our beekeeping enterprise has supported 125 women in Burkina Faso, 350 coffee farmers in Uganda, and a total of 2,305 beehives have been distributed to the farmers to enable them undertake this activity. So in all, we have been able to support producer groups and their communities to establish 4 beekeeping enterprises, which are currently thriving and promising. Some of the upcoming activities that we intend to do in Uganda, for instance, we are in the process of supporting the group to establish a honey processing facility so that after harvest, they can process the honey and package it for sale. We are also about to train them in honey harvesting techniques and processing methods. We'll also train them in agribusiness and entrepreneurial skills so that they can manage the beekeeping business professionally and sustainably. In Burkina Faso, we are exploring the possibility of getting them a truck that will help them because the volume of honey that is being produced now is increasing, and how to transport it from the remote rural areas to the urban centers for sale is becoming a challenge. So we are exploring funding opportunities to support the group in Burkina Faso to get a truck that will facilitate the transportation of the honey from the farms to market centers. So thank you. So this is just an overview of our work with beekeeping in both Burkina Faso and Uganda. Now I'm going to hand over to Maurice Muhindo, who is the general manager of Bunyangabo Beekeepers Cooperative Society in Western Uganda. They have been working in Uganda for a very long time, training group of beekeepers. They currently have 744 beekeepers, and then they collect about 30 metric tons of honey annually. Let me stop sharing. So on this note, Maurice, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Foundation Manager. My name is Muhindo Maurice, Manager of Bunyangabu Beekeepers Cooperative Society Limited, which is located in Western Uganda, Bunyangabu District, Rwenzori region. I take this opportunity on behalf of BBC and the board to appreciate Shared Interest Foundation Management for having selected BBC to be part of this event meeting across the world. We do not take it for granted because we know Shared Interest has many partners, but you selected BBC to be part of this. We thank you for that opportunity. Next. BBC as a cooperative is an organization promoting beekeeping activity as an income generating activity within the Rwenzori region. It started in 1993 as a community-based organization, and then later on in 2011, it was registered as a cooperative under Ministry of Trade and Cooperatives in Uganda. BBC in Uganda will have an umbrella organization called Tornado that is in charge of all beekeeping organizations, both individual and cooperatives. And this is called the Uganda National Apiculture Development Organization. This is based in Kampala, capital city of Uganda. So BBC, it is a member of this organization. BBC, it is a skilling center. We train youth in all aspects of beekeeping. We train in the apiary establishment and management. We train youth or farmers on how to make beekeeping inputs. That is the beehives, smokers, bee suits, bee brushes, and all other related inputs of beekeeping. BBC has partnered with many organizations, both at local and international levels. Mentioned but few, we have World Wide Fund, we have Queen Elizabeth National Park, protected area. We have Tornado. We have had a number of projects under Tornado in supplying beekeeping inputs and also skilling on the best practices of apiary management and establishment. BBC, it is served by 993 beekeepers within the Rwenzori region. Here we have 584 male beekeepers and 409 female from the districts within the Rwenzori region, that is Kabarole, Bunyangabu, Kasese, Ntoroko, and Chenjojo district. And here we have 6 collection centers because these are many districts. We can't have only one collection center, so we have centers in these districts. Next. BBC as a cooperative will have the vision and the mission that we follow day to day in executing our daily activities. The vision, a society of beekeepers living in a clean and healthy environment, enjoying sustainable livelihood. That is our vision, or as a cooperative. Then the mission, to promote sustainable and appropriate beekeeping technology among farmers to achieve high quality and quantity bee products for better income and improved health in a friendly environment. So BBC in all, when we are executing beekeeping activities, our aim, our first look, we first look at the quality of bee products. We don't compromise with the quality. So we make sure that we train our farmers with the best practices of beekeeping such that we have the right products from the right beekeepers. Next. Our products and services at the cooperative, BBC will mobilize farmers into the production of honey and other bee products within the all the district in the Renzo region, and also we go beyond this. BBC, our main product is honey. Honey is our main product. So we collect honey from trained farmers, we process, we pack, and sell. So currently we are collecting 30 to 35 tons of honey. This is semi-processed honey from beekeepers. Then here at BBC, we add value on it. As we are processing, we add value on it, but we collect 30 to 35 tons semi-processed honey from the trained farmers. We also skill, as I had earlier on said, we skill farmers in apiary establishment and management, input making, hives, smokers, bee suits, and all other related beekeeping activities. Next. Yeah, so here, these are some of our products. Here we can see a farmer delivering comb honey. So this is raw honey direct from hive. This is the honey that is well sealed and it is mature. So we can see here our production team trying to sort and grading comb honey for processing. Also here, after processing the residues of comb honey, we make wax out of it. So there, that is semi-processed wax. It is not fully processed. That is semi-processed wax. But we go further and we make it fine processed from the honey residues. Next. Yeah, after processing, as I earlier on said, we pack and seal. So these are some products that are already packed in different containers and different quantities. Here we try to consider all categories of people. So we pack in different containers at different with different prices. So here also we have propolis. Also, it is another product that we get from bee. Also, it is packed and processed here at BBC Cooperative. Next. Yeah, as I earlier on said, we train beekeepers in making hives. So here are some youth with the hives. These youth were skilled in making such inputs. Then after, they were given their hives after the training. So we also train entrepreneurship skills, how a farmer can keep record of his production. After training, BBC is an assessment center under Directorate of Industrial Training. So with the youth or farmers, after being assessed or training, they are assessed, and at the end of it, they are given a certificate. We give certificate up to level 3, that is the workers pass certificate. But here at the initial stage, we give a modular certificate. Next. Yeah, so here there are some farmers receiving the inputs from Kasese. There are others are from Chenjojo. Here you can see the Chenjojo entomologist officer confirming the distribution of KTB hives. We had this was an order of farmers from Chenjojo district, so we had delivered them. Next. Yeah, so the role of beekeeping here in Uganda, particularly in Rwenzori region, it improves people's income levels by earning after selling bee products. It can be by selling the products or giving a service like working on someone's apiary or establishing an apiary. Youth in most cases will normally link them uh, to such opportunities and they earn. There has been improved production of crops, especially coffee, due to pollination of bees, because the majority of farmers in Renzo region they deal in coffee plantation. So we encourage them to also do beekeeping as a complementary activity, and in the process there is always high improved production. Use of unproductive land, especially areas with poor soil for crop growing. So there has been utilization of this land for beekeeping, and farmers are earning a lot, and they're utilizing the land for beekeeping as an income generating activity. Uh, there has been a creation of employment to many youth or farmers through trading in bee products, knowledge exchange, and selling beekeeping inputs. Uh, it protects the environment by planting different tree species for nectar source. Uh, you can look here at our photo. This is a farmer planted these trees. These are eucalyptus trees, and it is a good nectar source of honey. But you can see alongside he established an apiary, so he's protecting the environment, but also is earning uh, by protecting the environment. Uh, Bee products are medicines for different diseases, and this has increased its demand. Indeed, during COVID, I should say we made some good sales. Bee products were at high demand, especially with the propolis. It was on demand. Next. Next. Yeah, well, the financial sources as a cooperative here, this is a member-based organization, and so we have shares. So farmers contribute to ensure that there is smooth running of the organization. Since it is a cooperative, so we have shareholders. Collected income from the sales of bee products like honey, propolis, candles, and beeswax. Selling of bee inputs like hives, uh, gloves, bee suits, and smokers, and other beekeeping inputs. We also have donations and grants from local and international organizations. Then also we have training and skilling of interested groups. These people, we charge them. Then we have loan or facilities. uh, we normally go for loan facilities to boost the production or to pay the farmers for their motivation. Next. Yeah, we have also some challenges when we execute beekeeping activities around the Renzo region. We always have a challenge of group finance to ensure prompt payment to the farmers as they deliver honey and other bee products at all collecting centers. In most cases, when there's no payment, prompt payment of the farmers, at times the farmers they get demoralized uh, when there's no prompt payment to their bee products. Capacity building in finance and cooperative management skills to the board and staff. We need to have this we need to gap this challenge. We still have it with our management team. Processing and storage facilities. The volume of honey production is increasing day and night, and we hope that we need to increase the processing facilities to cater for the high increment of beekeeping products, improved inputs, that is hive making, harvesting baskets and others at farmer level for quality and quantity bee products. So at times some farmers, they are unable to have quality or good food grade containers, and in most cases when it is in poor good food grade containers, in most cases we reject this, but what we need is to avail these contain inputs to them such that they are able to carry their products in food grade containers. And here we encourage you to use airtight buckets as recommended by Uganda Bureau of Standards. We also have a change of bee forage within the farmers' apiaries, which impact on the quantity of bee products. Then also knowledge on how to control pests and diseases. These are some challenges that we are facing, particularly here in the Rwenzori region. Next. Suggestions to the above gaps. We suggest that if there is access to financial services, either in form of loan, grants, or donations, to facilitate prompt payments of bee products at all production levels from farmers. Improve the marketing strategies of bee products across the country. Upskilling of extension workers with modern beekeeping best practices, providing simple processing methods to the trained farmers for processing for quality bee products, improving storage facilities at all collecting centers and at the main office, that is the Unyangabu district. So also the future plans of BBC, we plan to increase women and youth in beekeeping for decent employability, product diversification for increased income within beekeeping value chain, like honey wine, cosmetics, shoe polish, and other related products within the honey value chain. To strengthen the grassroots structures or the honey collecting centers. Here at BBC, we are looking at in the future to have a union. So, but before this union, we need to first strengthen our primary collection centers such that they are able to process at their centers. So, in the process, we shall come up with a union within the Rwenzori region. So to make a BBC information center of beekeeping in the Rwenzori region and the nation as whole, as well, to hold multi-stakeholders platforms, because we have realized that there are many actors, more especially in agriculture sector, people are spraying different products or crops, and in the process of spraying, there is always damage or killing of bees, and in the process we lose. Next. Thank you, members, for listening to Nyangabu Beekeepers Cooperative, Uganda. That is our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maurice.
Yes, you're welcome, please.
This interesting insight into beekeeping in Uganda. Now we are going to pass it on to Ian Campbell. Ian is the social media manager for the British Beekeepers Association, and he has been a beekeeper in the northeast of England for over 15 years. He has about 20 colonies, and he is going to give us some interesting perspective about beekeeping in the UK. Ian, over to you. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for inviting me. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see that now. Yes. I'm going to assume that you can see the screen. So my name's Ian Campbell, and as has been explained, I am from a beekeeping association in the northeast of England, getting up towards the Scottish border. And in England and parts of Wales, we have an association that is a collective group of all our little beekeeping associations, which is the British Beekeepers Association, and I work for them as well. I've been beekeeping for about 15 years. The number of colonies that we keep tends to vary year to year. I'm up at around 30 colonies at the moment. I'm really interested in a lot of the differences I've heard this morning about beekeeping in the countries that have been explained so far, because there are similarities, but there are a lot of differences as well. Our association up here is a group of about 150 people, and we work differently to what I've heard you talking about. We're mostly working individually. We don't really work as a cooperative. We have an association which is for training and which is for social purposes, but we don't really work together as beekeepers. Most of the work we do is fairly independent of each other. There is a wide range of kind of different locations. I'm based just on the edge of Newcastle, but I keep colonies in a wide range of kind of areas. So close to us is Northumberland, which reaches up to the Scottish border, and it's a very rural area. There are a lot of sheep and not a lot of people for a fair distance around us. Northumberland's a big county, and it's very lowly populated. Newcastle and the area around that is a mix of several cities very close to each other: Newcastle, Sunderland, Durham, North Shields, and places like that. That's quite an urban environment, and so we keep our bees in a mixture of different kind of locations, really, from the very rural, which are lovely, through to sort of city centres. Often businesses in the UK are quite keen to get some green credentials from looking at their environmental impact and inviting beekeepers onto their sites. And so we do some rooftop beekeeping in Newcastle, which it's not the perfect environment for bees, but it's a very interesting environment to try and keep beekeeping in. The picture on the left-hand side of screen is on top of a department store in the centre of Newcastle. Picture in the middle. In the UK, farming is mostly fairly large scale, but what we have in urban areas is what we call allotments, which are small plots of land, often known by the local authority, which we rent, and I keep bees on there and have done for a long period of time. So those little green spaces are in addition to any gardens that we might have. Just going back a second, actually, the type of hives we're using are obviously very different from the types that are being used elsewhere, especially in kind of Africa. We use a vertical hive. These hives are British national hives. They're mostly made of wood, although increasingly these days we are quite far north. Beekeeping season is short and it can be quite challenging. The weather, for example, this year has been really horrible, and it's been a real struggle to keep bees. We find the vertical hives, because heat rises, better for keeping bees, and increasingly people are moving towards some using polystyrene hives. Now, there are issues with plastic use there, but the insulation properties of these hives are much better. So there's a range of what people are using. Being part of the British Beekeepers Association, I work doing their social media, so to promote the activities of the organisation, but also to do some explaining beekeeping and just keeping beekeeping news and events kind of in people's minds. Our organisation has about 30,000 members. We're mostly based in England. Wales and Scotland have their own associations. Our group has grown a lot over the last sort of 20 odd years. Beekeeping hit a real low point around the turn of the century, and beekeeping numbers in the UK had dropped very low. They dropped below 10,000, and there was a danger of that craft skill just sort of fading away. But for a whole range of reasons, interest in it has grown and has grown significantly, and it's in a much healthier position now than it was 20 odd years ago. Our organisation is based in the Midlands of the UK in a place called Stoneleigh, which is not far from Birmingham. And our association, the British Beekeepers, is 150 years old this year. So it's been running since 1874 when it first started up. The structure of this organisation is there are all these little local organisations all around the country. It's about 270 of them. And they're all affiliated to the BBKA. And the BBKA provides insurance for our activities. It runs a training program from very, very kind of fundamental sort of things that we do at a local level, right the way up to what we call sort of master beekeepers, who are numbered in only about 100 of them in the UK, and who are very experienced and knowledgeable beekeepers, who we turn to for a lot of advice. The organisation produces a monthly magazine that goes out to all the members, and holds an annual convention where a lot of members gather together, where there's a trade show. Another difference to our sort of the way we work is we tend not to make very much of our equipment. We tend to, on the whole, buy the equipment, partly because of time and partly because there's a bit of a lack of skills in being able to make the equipment. And also, often if we were to try and make it independently, the costs of trying to make it and the time involved wouldn't make it very efficient for us to kind of do that. That follows on to the fact that most of us in the UK are hobby beekeepers. So we're not doing it commercially. Most people aren't even doing it as a sideline. So if they make any income from it, they're probably just covering their costs. Not many of us are making a livelihood from it. The average number of hives kept by a beekeeper in the UK is probably as low as 4 colonies. It's relatively small scale. And beekeepers will normally have another source of income, or often they're retired. We've seen a big change in the gender balance of beekeeping in recent years. It used to be quite heavily male. It's now pretty much 50-50, and that balance is even shifting. So more women than men in beekeepers. We probably lack younger beekeepers. So there is a worry about the sustainability of beekeeping. And while it has become more diverse, more younger beekeepers coming along would be beneficial. And that's something that's a challenge for us. There are commercial beekeepers in the UK, but they're fairly low in numbers. There's only about 400 of them. And most of them on the scale of commercial beekeeping in other countries would be considered very small. The largest beekeepers, commercial beekeepers, are keeping between 1,000 and 2,000 colonies, which if that was in the US or somewhere like that would be considered very small scale. We don't move our bees terribly much for migratory pollination. We're mainly doing it for honey crop pollination. A lot of the crops that would benefit from pollination wild pollinators will help in the UK. There is some pollination of orchards and things like that, but it's not a big thing in the UK. Our beekeeping season is short. We're probably only talking about from sort of May until September. So we're talking 4 or 5 months, and this year it's even been shorter than that. And the weather has been very unpredictable. As we all do, climate change is a factor here. Extreme weather events and unpredictable weather is becoming more challenging, and that is undoubtedly making things trickier. There are probably about 300,000 honeybee colonies in the UK. Again, compared to some European countries, that's relatively low. Our crop reflects our length of our season. 10 to 20 kilos per colony is probably a reasonable average. This year, I suspect it will be at the lower end of that or below. It's been a poor year. The UK isn't self-sufficient in honey, as most of Europe. We're significant honey importers, and this is a concern to us on various reasons. It's very hard for UK beekeepers to compete with others, both especially internationally, partly because their production costs are lower than ours, but also because of the amount of fraudulent honey and adulterated honey that there is on the market, which can bring the cost down in UK supermarkets so low that we could barely buy the jars for that price, let alone sell the honey in them. That is a concern, and the UK government is not terribly interested in helping us and tackling what is food fraud. It is widespread. It's not just the UK that suffers from it, but our regulations in the UK are particularly kind of unhelpful. Most of us, because we're small producers, only sell honey locally. There are big sort of honey packers in the country, but most of what they're dealing with is imported honey. So these local beekeeping associations are groups throughout the country, and they're a mixture of a social group, of an education group. We often get a lot of new beekeepers coming to us each year who are keen to learn the skills and the craft of beekeeping, and we will do our best to provide training for them. We do find quite a lot of people come into beekeeping and then drop out of beekeeping, so what we call churn is quite high, and we can lose as many as 25% of our members each year, just because people weren't quite sure what they were getting into, and it didn't quite work for them for a whole range of reasons. So it can be quite challenging to try and to train beekeepers and keep them kind of going in it. It's there's a lot of pressures on people in terms of time and money and all the things that bees can take, and that provides a challenge for individuals. The species we're dealing with up here is probably slightly different to yours. We're dealing with Apis mellifera mellifera, the dark European honeybee, which are a dark bee. They are relatively hardy and reasonably productive and not terribly aggressive. We had a bad problem about 100 years ago with something called Isle of Wight disease that was probably a mixture of acarine and chronic bee paralysis virus that wiped out almost the whole stock of bees in the UK. So most of the bees have been brought in from Europe since then. So we've got a very mixed profile of bees, but they need to be fairly tough to survive in our climate. It's a challenging place, and winter losses can be high at times. We have threats to our populations of bees here. Honeybees aren't endangered. There's a lot of other species. There's about 270 species of bees in the UK, and honeybees aren't one of the endangered ones, but there are challenges to them. We've lost a lot of our wildflower meadows. We have issues with pesticides and weak government kind of enforcement of restrictions on pesticides. We have pest and disease, which we always need to be mindful of, and we've got a new hornet moving into this country, which will prove challenging, and as I've mentioned, climate change. And as you can see on the left of the screen there, that kind of our losses vary and can be as low as 10%, but can be over 30% in a kind of bad winter. The way our government works is that they are mostly interested in honeybees for pollination and our food security. the Healthy Bee Plan and pollination plans are set out. We've got a department called DEFRA, Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. As you may be aware, we've just had a change of government in the UK. We're hoping the new government will be more supportive of beekeeping and the environment than the previous government was. And we have something called the National Bee Unit, which is a specific group of people who check bees for health reasons and are there to support beekeepers and publish a lot of very useful advice leaflets for beekeepers on managing our bees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. This is very interesting, getting the perspective of beekeeping in the UK. As you said, yeah, there are differences and also a lot of similarities. Now, this is a time for our Q&A, which is going to be managed by Harriet from Shared Interest Foundation.
Okay.
If you can stop sharing the screen.
So if you want to return, Ian and Morris, if you want to switch your cameras back on and your microphone, and we've had a number of questions come through for both of you. So I will, and Patricia, I think. Thank you. So I'll start off with you, Morris. So could you explain a little bit more about the market for your products? Do you export or do you sell on the local market?
Thank you very much, Harriet. Once again, the market, our honey here in Rwenzori region, Uganda, it is consumed locally. People who are bypassing and some tourists. So we haven't exploited the international market. It is still consumed here locally. So the production is still low and the demand is increasing.
Okay. And you talk about the number of members of BBC. On average, how many hives do each member have?
Yeah, on average, we have two categories of people. We have those farmers whom we call bee champions. So those bee champions, we have over 100 in the Rwenzori region. On average, minimum, a bee champion is having 50 colonies. Minimum. But then the others, we call them auxiliary beekeepers. On average, they have 20 to 30 colonies.
Okay, thank you. And so this one's for you, Ian. So do beekeepers keep track of their bee numbers yearly? If they do they see any decline in bee numbers each year? As I understand that there is a decline in bees globally, and just wonder how much this has had an impact.
We do in two different ways. Each beekeeper will probably keep their own records of their hives. We have a survey each year, which I showed on the graph a little bit earlier, which mainly looks at the losses during winter. So we monitor how many colonies, and as I say, that number it's hard to get below 10% losses. But when we're getting years, and we had a year last year where the winter losses 22, 23 were up to nearly 30%. And then we really need to start asking questions about what's happening, because that's getting problematic. We also, the National Bee Unit also do a survey each year of roughly estimating how many colonies there are in the country. And that's where we get the number of around 300,000 colonies from. So yes, we do monitor. As I mentioned, honeybees are not really an endangered species in the UK. We do have a lot of challenges for them. There are a lot more species that are on endangered lists that are more at greater risk than honeybees.
Okay, thank you. And Kodros, this one's for you. So we talked about the project in Burkina Faso and about the sustainability of that project. So are the women now able to manage that beekeeping enterprise independently?
Yeah, so we completed the Bee for Business project in Burkina Faso since 2022. And the women are now managing their own beekeeping enterprise independently with no support from us. So they've been able to buy additional beehives on their own from the revenue that they made from the sales of honey. and they keep increasing the volume on a year-by-year basis, and then contributing to a lot of economic activities or development in their communities.
Thank you. And so we did have a question asking about how, if you would like to support any of our beekeeping projects, how you can do that. And so we do have a dedicated page on our website. I think the link will be shared in the chat or after this presentation if you are interested in making a donation to any of our beekeeping projects. So next question is for you, Maurice. So have you also seen an impact of climate change on beekeeping? And how has a change in climate affected the beekeeping in your region? And then the second part to that question, you mentioned in your presentation about the increasing pests and diseases. Do you have any suggestions for how the beekeepers can increase their resilience against pests and diseases?
Okay, on this side of Maurice and Edson, Edson can try to respond to that question. Thanks so much for that question. The question on the pests and diseases, in fact, it is all about management. When the apiary is clean, the hives are cleaned, and the apiary site is also first, I think we can overcome the issue of pests and diseases. The issue of climate change, yes. In fact, when there is a change in the climate, it affects beekeeping highly because the plants, most of the time, the plants, those ones that could be the good source for nectar, would be lost, as in a high drought. So the bees get starved, and in the long run, they abscond. You find out that there is high abscondments of the bees during the dry seasons. So there is much effect due to as a result of climate changes. Then maybe on the issue of the trees, we always encouraging beekeepers to plant more trees. And as BBC here, that is Munyangabu beekeepers, we are also having a nursery bed whereby our farmers always come and buy these seedlings for them to plant. We have the macadamia seedlings and the indigenous plants, that is the mangoes and the like. So that's the situation here right now.
Thank you. No, very interesting. I think we have time for one final question, which has come for you, Ian, which was, you mentioned in your presentation about the Asian hornet and that it is a threat. Could you just expand upon that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. There's been the yellow-legged Asian hornet, which is the Latin's Vespa velutina, is one of a number of hornets from Asia. Vespa velutina, we're calling it less the Asian hornet now because there's so many different species it gets confusing. But this yellow-legged Asian hornet got into France from China about 20 years ago and has been spreading rapidly through France and now is in 14 European countries. Last year, it started to make a significant incursion into the UK. We've had small incursions since 2016, and the Channel Islands has had a problem since 2016. It started to become a significant problem in the UK. In France, they're losing on average 30% of their colonies to Asian hornets each year. They're different. We have a native hornet in Europe called Vespa crabro, the European hornet, which takes a few bees but is largely harmless. It's a big insect. Asian hornets are an apex predator. They're very damaging. It will change the beekeeping landscape. We are hoping through the National Bee Unit and the efforts of UK beekeepers we can eradicate it, but we're really quite worried that it will become established and will become a whole new level of problem that we could do without. So we'll watch with interest.
Thank you. So I'll now hand over to Patricia for the closing remarks.
Thanks, Harriet. Just a big thank you to our presenters today, Maurice and Edson and Ian. I hope you found it really interesting. Thanks to Kodjo and Harriet for organising. And, as I said, thanks to everybody who's attended today. Do please fill in the feedback form. They're very important to us for our future planning. And I hope to see you at a future foundation event. Bye for now.